Imagine a dusty village in the Nile Delta, 1928. No electricity, no running water in many homes, just the rhythmic flow of the great river and the endless fields of cotton and wheat. A boy is born into a modest family, his father a low-level inspector and court clerk in the Ministry of Justice, a stern disciplinarian who dreamed of his son becoming a schoolteacher studying Arabic and history at the Higher Teachers College in Cairo. His mother, a devoted housewife raising 5 children, kept the household together on a civil servant's modest salary. Poverty was their constant companion, yet ambition burned quietly in young Muhammad Hosni Mubarak. Little did the world know that this boy from Kafr el-Misilha in Monofia Governorate would one day command Egypt's skies, survive bullets meant for his predecessor, and steer the Arab world's most populous nation for nearly 30 years as its president. Longer than any ruler since Muhammad Ali Pasha in the 19th century. This is the improbable rise of Hosni Mubarak, from poor village boy to president for life. Today, drawing from Wikipedia's detailed records, BBC and Britannica archives, books like Galal Amin's Egypt in the era of Hosni Mubarak and Tariq Usman's Egypt on the Brink, news reports from the New York Times, Al Jazeera, and public interviews including Mubarak's own 1981, 1997, and later reflections, we uncover the full story. His early struggles, meteoric military ascent, decades of iron-fisted rule, explosive controversies, and the enduring lessons of power, stability, and revolution. Born on 4th May 1928, in that small delta village known for its schools yet mired in rural hardship, Mubarak's childhood was shaped by discipline and limited means. Historical accounts describe his father as a minor official whose government salary barely stretched to cover basics, pushing the family toward self-reliance. Young Hosni attended local elementary and secondary schools, excelling in Arabic and history just as his father hoped, but the boy harbored bigger dreams. Against paternal wishes for a teaching career, Mubarak chose the military path, a route that offered structure, education, and a ladder out of poverty for ambitious young Egyptians in the post-monarchy era. In 1949, he graduated from Egypt's military academy in Cairo with a bachelor's in military science. Just months later, in March 1950, he earned his pilot officer commission from the Air Force Academy at Bilbais, receiving a degree in aviation sciences. Those early years were marked by relentless training and the grind of a junior officer's life, flying Spitfire fighters in squadrons, proving himself in a force still recovering from World War II shadows and the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. No glamour, no shortcuts. Just discipline, hours in the cockpit, and the quiet determination of a young man who had seen his family's struggles and vowed to rise above them. The 1950s tested and forged him. Mubarak served as an instructor at the Air Force Academy until 1959, shaping the next generation of pilots while honing his own skills. Then came a pivotal opportunity, 2 years of advanced training in the Soviet Union, first in Moscow and then at Kant Air Base in Kyrgyzstan. There, he mastered the Ilyushin Il-28 and Tupolev Tu-16 jet bombers, absorbing Soviet tactics that would later prove crucial. By 1964, he attended the prestigious Frunze Military Academy in Moscow, further polishing his strategic mind. Back home, the 1967 Six-Day War delivered a harsh blow to Egypt's Air Force, most squadrons devastated by Israeli strikes, but Mubarak's leadership shone. As an instructor and commander, he helped preserve one of the few intact squadrons, earning promotion to director of the Air Force Academy in November 1967. Over the next 2 years, he doubled the number of pilots and navigators, rebuilding Egypt's aerial might in preparation for the next conflict. By 1972, President Anwar Sadat appointed him Chief of Staff of the Air Force and Deputy Minister of Defense. In the October 1973 Yom Kippur War, Mubarak's Air Force launched a stunning surprise attack on Israeli positions east of the Suez Canal, striking 90% of targets in the opening hours. Egyptian pilots crossed the canal under fire, boosting national morale as ground troops followed. Mubarak was hailed a war hero, promoted to Air Chief Marshal, though later accounts like those from Shahdan el-Shazli in Al-Masri al-Yum debated the exact credit, with some suggesting he amplified his role in official narratives. Still, the victory cemented his status, a poor boy turned aerial commander who helped restore Egyptian pride after decades of defeat. Sadat recognized the rising star. In April 1975, Mubarak became vice president, stepping into high-level diplomacy. He mediated disputes, traveled to Riyadh and Damascus to secure Arab acceptance of the Sinai to disengagement agreement with Israel, and built ties with leaders like Saudi Crown Prince Fahd. When Sadat vacationed, decision-making often fell to him. Then came the fateful day that propelled Mubarak to the pinnacle, 6 October 1981. During a military parade commemorating the 1973 war, Islamist extremists led by Khalid Islamboli assassinated Sadat, spraying the reviewing stand with bullets. Mubarak, seated nearby, was grazed in the hand but survived. In the chaos, as Egypt reeled, the military man assumed control. A single-candidate referendum on 14 October confirmed him as president. He briefly served as prime minister before fully taking the reins. In public interviews shortly after, like his 1981 Thames television appearance, Mubarak justified the swift crackdown on the assassins, emphasizing national security and continuity. "I faced death many times as a pilot." He later reflected in speeches, underscoring his resilience forged in the cockpit and now tested by gunfire. Mubarak's peak years, spanning nearly 3 decades until 2011, were defined by pragmatic stability abroad and iron control at home. He upheld Sadat's Camp David Accords and the 1979 peace treaty with Israel, maintaining what many called a cold peace: no visits to Jerusalem, no deep normalization, but no return to war. Egypt rejoined the Arab League in 1989 after a decade of isolation, with the organization's headquarters returning to Cairo. He supported Iraq during the 1980-1988 Iran-Iraq War, sending workers and aid, then pivoted dramatically in 1991 by joining the US-led coalition against Saddam Hussein's invasion of Kuwait. Egyptian troops were among the first in Saudi Arabia, earning billions in debt forgiveness and Gulf gratitude. Yet he opposed the 2003 US invasion of Iraq, warning it would create 100 bin Ladens and urging focus on Palestinian peace first. Domestically, his government expanded affordable housing, clothing, and medicine production. State employment swelled to 8 million out of a 75 million population. He re-established ties with the Soviet Union in 1984, hosted the 2000 Sharm el-Sheikh Summit, backed the 2002 Arab Peace Initiative, and brokered a short-lived 2008 Israel-Hamas ceasefire. In rare public interviews, such as his 1997 discussion on the peace process and a later 2019 reflection published in Alamba, Mubarak stressed patience. Any plan imposed on the region based on power imbalance is likely to fail, he cautioned, drawing from decades of subtle diplomacy. But beneath the statesman's image lay deepening controversies, that defined his rule and ultimately toppled it. Emergency law, imposed after the 1967 war and never lifted under Mubarak, granted sweeping powers to security forces. The State Security Investigations Service and Central Security Forces expanded, crushing dissent. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch documented systematic torture, beatings, electric shocks, sexual violence in police stations, with near-total impunity. Corruption perceptions worsened. Transparency International ranked Egypt poorly by 2010. Allegations swirled that Mubarak's family amassed $40-70 billion through military contracts, bribes, and crony businesses. Swiss and British accounts frozen in 2011, though exact figures remained disputed. His sons Alaa and Gamal drew scrutiny, with Alaa later named in the Panama Papers. Multi-party elections, like the 2005 vote under US pressure, were marred by rigging claims. Opposition figure Ayman Noor was jailed on forgery charges. Mubarak survived 6 assassination attempts, including a 1995 Addis Ababa ambush and a 1999 stabbing, reinforcing his security-first mindset. Books like Galal Amin's critique portray an era of stagnation, economic growth for a connected elite, but widening inequality, youth unemployment, and political atrophy. Mubarak resisted meaningful reforms, grooming son Gamal as successor in the eyes of many, though he publicly denied dynastic plans. In a 2014 interview with Fazir Al-Said after his release, he endorsed Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, saying simply, "The people want Sisi, and the people's will shall prevail." A nod to the very forces that replaced him. The breaking point came in January 2011. Sparked by Tunisia's uprising, millions poured into Tahrir Square and cities nationwide, chanting against corruption, police brutality, and Mubarak's endless rule. Protests demanded jobs, dignity, and an end to 30 years of emergency law. On 1 February, Mubarak addressed the nation in a televised speech, vowing not to run again in September but refusing immediate resignation. "I have lived for this nation. I have given the country and served the country for 60 years in public service. During wartime and during peacetime." He promised reforms and constitutional changes, but the crowds rejected it as too little, too late. After 18 days of clashes that killed hundreds of protesters, Mubarak resigned on 11 February, transferring power to the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces. Omar Suleiman announced it. The poor boy who became president for life was out. House arrest in Sharm el-Sheikh followed, his health failing amid cancer rumors. Trials began in 2011. Charged with corruption and complicity in protester killings, he appeared in a hospital bed inside a cage, pleading not guilty. Convicted in 2012 to life imprisonment for failing to stop the deaths, then overturned in 2013, retrials and acquittals followed on murder charges, though he and his sons received 3- and 4-year sentences for embezzling millions on presidential palaces. By 2017, after multiple appeals and time served, Mubarak walked free. He died on 25 February 2020 at 91 in a Cairo military hospital, receiving a full military funeral at Tantawi Mosque and burial in the family plot in Heliopolis. President el-Sisi praised his 1973 war role, but the revolution's scars remained. Mubarak's legacy is profoundly mixed, a cautionary tale etched in Egypt's modern history. On one hand, he delivered 3 decades of relative stability. No major wars after 1973, reintegration into the Arab fold, economic expansion in housing and infrastructure, and a steady hand against Islamist insurgencies in the 1990s. Egypt under him avoided the chaos that engulfed neighbors. Yet that stability came at a devastating cost: entrenched repression, mass arbitrary detention, torture as policy, and corruption that hollowed out institutions. As Amin's book details and Usman chronicles, political life atrophied, youth aspirations withered, and crony capitalism widened the gap between rich and poor, the very divides that fueled the Arab Spring. His downfall did not birth lasting democracy; instead, it paved the way for LCC's even tighter grip, as some Egyptians later nostalgically recalled Mubarak's era amid harsher crackdowns. In his own words from that 2011 speech, Mubarak saw himself as protector of the constitution and people's interests, yet history records how power, once seized from humble origins, hardened into authoritarian permanence. The lesson is timeless. No ruler is indispensable, and ignoring the cries for dignity and reform invites upheaval. From a poor Delta village to the presidential palace, and back to quiet retirement, Hosni Mubarak's long rule reminds us that ambition can lift a man to the heights, but unchecked, it risks burying a nation's hopes. What do you think, hero of stability or architect of stagnation? Drop your thoughts below, like and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most fascinating figures, and remember, the past isn't just stories, it's the mirror we hold to today. Until next time, stay curious.